Welcome back, everyone. Dustin here again, Average Guy Hi-Fi, with another subwoofer review for you guys. So I hope your 2021's gotten off to a great start. People that have been taking the time to comment my videos, ask me questions, people are sharing how much they're paying for stuff in their markets. I could see this thing kind of growing a little bit and helping beginners out there to know roughly how much things should cost. All markets are a little bit different. I know my neighbors to the north in Canada have to pay crazy prices for a lot of stuff up there, and I feel bad for those guys. But, you know, just all markets are a little bit different, but really that's cool. I'm seeing how much kind of the different markets are. If you guys have snagged good deals, people are sharing them with me. Other people are chiming in when people are asking questions. I just really appreciate the activity. I think that's kind of what this channel is going to be. It's going to be more dedicated to people with tighter budgets, beginners just getting into the hobby. I'm not going to beat you up too much when it comes to specs and things like that. Just give you some basic information and then give you guys my impressions. So hopefully if something pops up on your used market like this, you'll be able to at least have one video to go to, because nobody's reviewing the older stuff. So that's kind of my plan anyway, and it's really gotten off to a killer start. So thank you guys again for all the support. But what I'm sitting next to here is it's very similar to another subwoofer that I've actually reviewed not too long ago. This right here is the Klipsch SW-450. One of the videos I made a little while ago was of the Klipsch SW-350. So that was the 8-inch version. This is the 10-inch version. This is very similar to the Klipsch Sub 10, which is another model. This is the newer version of that, from what I can tell. The cabinet size are basically the same. Specs are basically the same. Amplifier is very similar. This is just the newer version of that subwoofer, from what I can tell. Even the feet look the same to me. So a little bit different, but not much. So this subwoofer is a down-firing 10-inch subwoofer with a rear port. It's about 17 inches tall. It's about 14 inches wide from the front, and it's about 19.5 inches deep. So one thing to think about with this subwoofer is positioning it in the room, because it does stick out a little bit farther than your traditional box subwoofers. So it has a 10-inch fiber composite woofer, which is right there. It doesn't fit on my little spinny tray there, otherwise, so I got to kind of spin it around on my own here. It has a big kind of one port in the back of the subwoofer. Has a 200 watt RMS Class D amplifier, and then it's about 450 watts peak. Klipsch claims a frequency response of 28 hertz, plus or minus 3 dB. I believe that, you know, it does a good job. Expecting anything in 20 hertz from this subwoofer it's just not really gonna get there. I mean, you need a more powerful amplifier, way bigger box to try to really get some usable output around that 28 hertz range. So, but 30 hertz, you can pretty much count on that, somewhere around that range, which will give you a lot of the movie content, but you're going to be missing out on what everybody really talks about, is the stuff below 20 hertz, where you get the kind of the shaking going on, and the more impact and stuff like that when things kind of explode, or a car door closes, things, you know, things along those lines. But what this subwoofer does is kind of for your average consumer, it's just, I feel like they sold a ton of these things, and the MSRP pricing of this subwoofer is quite high. Didn't score very well when it comes to that. I gave it, it's a $450 MSRP pricing, so that puts it up there with the speed woofer, and it also puts it up there with the shoe subwoofers. So it's close enough to where I would just get the shoe subwoofer without a doubt. But I think what Klipsch does is, most people didn't pay $450 for this thing. They probably grabbed it on sale. Looking at the previous sales of this subwoofer, I've seen it sell for $250, $300. So at that price point, it starts making more sense. At the $450 price point, the competition's just too great. And if you paid $450, I'm sure you're happy with it, totally fine, but you could have stretched your money a little bit better when it comes to performance, going with a different model. But again, I think what they did, kind of like what Costco did with the reference 12-inch subwoofer, they had an MSRP price on there, and then they're able to pad that MSRP pricing a little bit, and then close subwoofers out, like the PSW 505. You know, most people, I think more people bought that thing on sale than they did at MSRP pricing. I'm pretty sure that's the same with this subwoofer as well, too. Especially since it kind of floated around that $250, $300 range pretty regularly. I would imagine that 75% of the people that own the subwoofer ended up getting it on sale. And that makes it a much better value compared to the MSRP pricing on it. Weighs about 35.5 pounds, so not a very heavy subwoofer for its size, but that's expected in this price point. You're not expecting a huge woofer like the SBS SB16 Ultra woofer, which the woofer alone weighs more than this whole cabinet. So, but it's a been quality subwoofer. I've been listening to it for about a week now, week and a half, and again, we're just on to the next. Got a couple other cool subwoofers showing up here. But before we do that, let's go over there. I'll play Overlord, that opening scene with the explosions and everything like that. Really gets this subwoofer energized in that room, and a lot of fun to watch. So let's go over there. We'll show you the sub in action, and then I'll come back over here and I'll give you guys the average guy hi-fi score. Stay tuned. All right, everyone, we got the SW-450 all hooked up here. We're going to be, again, playing Overlord. Right now I'm just using those Martin Logans. Those will be coming up here next for the review. But right now we're focusing on the SW-450, which is right there. And again, the movie's Overlord. It's the plane scene where they're flying in. And then I'll turn it sideways so you guys can see the subwoofer in action. So it might be a little clunky, but here we go. Let's hit play. I think most of you guys probably like that action scene more than anything, but this is actually my favorite part of the video. This is where I give you guys my impressions of the equipment that I have in here for review, and then literally after this portion's going, this portion to put the video up, I'm listing these things for sale. So I have $100 into the subwoofer, so I'll be selling it for $100 once I'm totally finished with it. So that's kind of the plan, and then I'll put that $100 into something else. I've already got a couple cool things picked out. Hopefully I can land them. But anyway, now we're on to the average guy hi-fi scoring section of the videos. This is where I give you guys my impressions. So there's 5 categories. Each category is worth 10 points, 10 being the best. The 5 categories are quality, just the overall quality of the cabinet, the feet, the amplifier, all that type of stuff. The bass, that's another category. The MSRP pricing is another category. The aesthetics is another category. And then my price paid. And then we average those out, all 5 categories, and then we come up with the average guy hi-fi score. So let's jump right into it from a quality standpoint. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. You know, it's a decent quality subwoofer at this price point. Seems to do a pretty good job. The laminate's nice and durable. There are some scratches. This subwoofer has a couple dings here and there, but it looks like it held up pretty well. Subwoofers that have the laminate on there that wasn't applied right starts peeling up. I know you guys have seen this a few times. This subwoofer doesn't suffer from that at all, minus where the dings are at. The feet feel nice and high quality. The amplifier, you know, all that stuff feels pretty good. 7.5 out of 10 when it comes to the quality. Comes to the bass response, I gave it also a 7.5 out of 10. It does a good job for the frequencies that it's supposed to. Again, if you're hoping for good extension into the 20 hertz down to like the below the 30 hertz range, you're not really going to get it unless you're in a super small room. This thing does a good job pressurizing the room. It has good impact, but it really starts to flutter a little bit once it starts trying to be asked to do what it really can't. If it's trying to hit a bass note at 100 dB, 20 hertz, the woofer is just not going to be able to produce those notes. So if you go into it knowing that it's going to go down to about 30 hertz, I think you'll be very happy with the purchase of this. And there's a lot of content at 30 hertz, and you get some nice kick out of it. But you're not getting the real deep stuff that kind of rumbles the rooms and shakes things a little bit. So just be prepared for that. 7.5 out of 10 when it comes to bass. Decent impact, good quality. It is a little bit on the boomy side, no matter what I did with positioning, so it kind of suffers there. I can't handle boomy bass. The subwoofers that I've owned, from Rhythmic, from PSA, from SVS, I know what non-boomy bass can sound like. So I've got a pretty short leash when it comes to any boominess. So I tried to move it around the room a little bit, which cured it. Keeping it away from a corner helped me a little bit. Keeping it away from the walls also did that. And then getting it tuned correctly. Just spinning. I think a lot of people out there have home theater subwoofers in their systems, and they're just not tuned correctly. My experience going in home theaters, people grinning ear to ear with me for equipment that I know should sound better, and I'm just sitting there going, oh man, I know this could sound better. But at that point, I'm already buying the stuff, so I can't really give them any pointers. But really, subwoofer is the most particular speaker in the set to get positioned correctly and make sure it's set up correctly. That's what's going to make literally the biggest impact on everything, is spending the time on getting the subwoofer properly set up. 7.5 out of 10 when it comes to bass. When it comes to the MSRP pricing, I gave it a 7 out of 10. $450 is too much money for this subwoofer, but luckily, like I said in the earlier part of the video, most people bought these subwoofers at the sale prices just because they were constantly listed on sale. And like I said, I think that's a part of it. When they come up with a subwoofer like this, especially when they kind of redid a subwoofer that was existing, they didn't have to spend a whole lot of money in R&D to come up with this subwoofer. There's probably a little bit of changes, but in that way they could sell it for $250, $300 range. And then it's like, hey, the subwoofer's on sale. Then everybody kind of buys it up. And then I'm sure they sell thousands and thousands because this thing is readily available. 7 out of 10 when it comes to the MSRP pricing. $450 too much. $450 is too much money for it. But, something around the $250, maybe the $300 range definitely is much better pricing for it. 7 out of 10 when it comes to the MSRP. Aesthetics, I also gave it a 7 out of 10. I'm not really a big fan of this. I've never been a big fan of the downfiring Klipsch subwoofers. I'm a Klipsch fan in general. But I thought this always looked a little bit clunky because it sticks out in the room a little bit farther than most subwoofers of this 10-inch woofers. So 7 out of 10 when it comes to the looks. Pretty basic. I like the little blue light on there. I know a lot of people don't like the lights and things like that. Just looks decent. Not going to knock your socks off. Not going to look terrible either. And then we go on to the my price paid. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. $100 for this subwoofer in the condition that it's in is a very good deal. It does have some dings here and there, a couple little marks. But other than that, performs flawlessly how it should. No issues with it. But I've also, as you guys know, I've got some pretty amazing deals that I've gotten, so it didn't necessarily score all that high either. So when it comes to quality, I gave it a 7.5. When it comes to the bass, I gave it a 7.5. When it comes to the MSRP pricing, I gave it a 7. When it comes to the aesthetics, I gave it a 7. And when it comes to my price paid, I gave it a 7.5. That is 36.5 out of 50, which is a 73% average guy HiFi score. It's I'm trying to use as much as that range as general. I tend to be a little bit too nice, I would say. So my numbers, I'm not as picky as some or as critical as some out there, which I don't think is good for this channel anyway with beginners and things like that. I just want to give you guys my initial impressions of about spending about a week and a half with this equipment. That way you guys can go out and make more educated decisions when it comes to buying stuff. So I'm not quite as critical. My ears seem to be happier. But it is going to be, I'm very particular. I can tell instantly when a system's not set up correctly. I think you can get away with a nice quality budget system, maybe $500 in speakers and subwoofers on the used market, and then spend a lot of time getting it positioned correctly in your room and set up correctly, especially the bass, and you'll have a very good experience with this for relatively a little bit of money into it. So again, that's the type of content this channel is going to do. I've got 2 other subwoofers that I just picked up. I got some really awesome KEF speakers that they look like I might even keep them. I'm not quite sure yet, but I got some pretty cool stuff planned for you guys. I even bought an 86-inch TV that I'm going to be picking up, I think, on Wednesday. So what my plan is to do a visual representation. I'm going to put my camera right where I sit my main listening position to give you guys an idea of what how immersive the 65-inch OLED is, and then also do the same with the 86-inch. It's not an OLED, so that I'm going to see if I'm going to choose quantity, the 86-incher, over quality of the C9 65-inch OLED that I have. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be sticking with the OLED, but anyway, that deal popped up on that 86-inch TV that I just couldn't refuse. So that'll be an upcoming video, and I think I've already got that TV sold if I end up keeping the C9. So anyway, I'm always kind of wheeling and dealing, trying to find bargains out there. So if this is the type of stuff you guys are into, just coming from an average guy that has a day job but loves home audio, stick around, subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you. Thank you guys very much again.